Okay guys, let's do this again because my battery apparently died, which I have charging right now. This is my other battery I bought not that long ago to back me up on. But yeah, I want to come on here like I originally planned to do. First of all, before I start, I want to let you guys know that if you want to help support me even further, you can go to my Teespring store. I have merchandise there so you guys can check stuff out in time for Christmas for yourself or family or friends. Also check me out at BW Rose's Discussion on all your favorite audio podcast locations except for Pandora. I'm almost at 300 podcasts, if you will. I just uploaded episode 298 today, twice. One is a video upload because I've been able to access that now. That's for support, I guess. And if you're listening to the podcast, BW Rose's Discussions on Anchor.fm, listener support has been enabled. So if you want to help me out there, it'd be greatly appreciated. Also check me out at BW Roses on VENMO for content you can't get here on YouTube due to copyright reasons. Hopefully, that won't be the case because one of the videos I put on there has been, been given the green light again here on the YT. Also check me out at BW Roses on Patreon for to support me with a $1 or $3 tier. $3 tier gives you access to content you can't get anywhere else except for Patreon for a limited time before I make it public to everybody else. And then check me out as well at VENMO at Brian-Walmer-2 to help support me there as well. But anyway, though, guys, let's get into talking about the Analogue Pocket, if you will. The Analogue Pocket is something new that came out recently, and this morning, videos that channels, I should say, that I'm subscribed to in Rerez and Metal Jesus Rocks, both did separate videos almost around the same time, or uploaded, I should say, separate videos almost around the same time, as the other, talking about this. And they both talked very similarly about it. Metal Jesus touched upon things that Rerez didn't, and vice versa. And the overall verdict is that basically it is a system to get. Now, Metal Jesus did mention that the price range for it does go around $120. Which right now for me is a lot of money, but if I had the finances, I'd be able to get that, or within a heartbeat, because I would love nothing more, like anybody else, to have an all-in-one system to play portable games on. And the other things he talked about was there was both of them basically talked about the fact that they did have some accessories that came with them. One of them was a case, a hard plastic case to keep the system in for protection, whether you're traveling or you just want to keep it for display until you feel like playing it. Stuff like that. They did mention it comes with HDMI cable. It does come with a link cable, if you will, a la Game Boy and Game Boy Advance and Game Boy Advance SP. It does, I think, it does come with a USB-C cable. The only thing that it lacks is an AC adapter to connect that cable to, so you have to pretty much supply your own, or you can order it from Analogue. Shane Rerez, who did the send-in review, because that's both what these were, send-in reviews by Analogue to these people. Shane said that he uses his iPhone charger, and that his iPhone charger for his recent iPhone, and it works just as well. So like you said, you could probably go out and buy it from Analogue, buy one separately at a store, whatever, or just use one that you have around the house, and it should work. Both of them did say that the cons about the system and there were very few cons that they talked about, but they said the cons about the system were, one, the games didn't, like on the back, Shane of Rerez brought this up, that on the back, when you insert the games into the cartridge slot, that unlike an original Game Boy, they don't fit in there, snug enough to where no matter whether you drop the Game Boy or you don't, they're not going to fall out. He also brought up the fact that it didn't have something that, a switch on there, basically, that when you power the original Game Boy on, it locks the game in, for so you can play the game without problems. That it basically lacked that, is what he said. It lacked that pretty much. The other thing that he said was a bit of a con as well, and I think it was Metal Jesus that brought this one up, is you can't adjust the the settings, or the picture settings, if you will, when you are playing it on your TV. You can't do that. It's only limited right now to the analog, to the portableness of the Analog Pocket, and that's about it. There were a few other things I think they touched upon, but like I said, very few cons, and mostly all positive outlook on this. Pretty much dominated both videos, if you will. They both loved the crystal clear image that came out of this. Both of them said that the resolution goes around between 1080p to about 2K, just about, basically 1080p to 1440p, and that does get amplified on your television to the 1080p output or 4K output you might have, even though it's still presented in 1440 or 1440p or 1080p. You know, so they touched upon that. You know, and they said that was a great thing. Like I said, the only thing they said that was kind of a negative was you can't adjust the picture on there when you're playing on the television, because it's only, like I said, limited to the portable right now. The other thing they liked was some of the features that was added to it, like the GB Studio, which is the Game Boy Studio, allows you to make your own games, but you have to, I think, download the software via mini SD card and then insert it into the SD card slot on the back. Or not on the back, but on the side, on the right side of the system. And I think, you know, so that was one of the features they talked about that, you know, Rerez talked a little bit more into, and Metal Jesus was like, I don't know about this yet, I haven't tested this yet, you know, I'm only playing it for the games, and Shane of Rerez said the same thing. The other thing that they talked about as well was it also has a music area, not for MP3s or anything, but for MIDI, so mids as they call it, midis as they call it, MIDIs. So you could do like midis versions of certain songs, or make your own midis versions of soundtracks you could play for games, like if you're using the Game Boy Studio to make games and stuff like that. So they said that was a cool feature. They did mention that, like the other analog products, that there will be firmware updates as we speak. You know, currently there will be firmware updates to help improve the system. Shane acknowledged that the last time they did an analog one of the last analog systems they talked about was the Analog Super NT, which was the analog version of a Super Nintendo, and that ever since then a lot of firmware updates had come into play to help improve that system and make it better than what it was originally released as. So Metal Jesus touched upon the fact in his video that if you see some like updates or things going on with the system, you know, that's mainly because the firmware update, if you have the SD card in there with a firmware update, you know, that's what's happening. It's basically updating the system, you know, as time goes on. The other thing they talked about, like I said, and when I was mentioning the television, is it does come with a charging dock. You know, just like the Nintendo Switch, you could put this on a miniature dock, if you will, miniature dock, and it will charge. It will charge the system, and you will get about 6 to 10 hours of playtime on it. The other thing, like I mentioned, is like the Switch, you know, you could play the game, because I mentioned this earlier, or moments ago, you could play the games on your television. Well, the dock basically is like a Switch. It allows you to do that. You put the system on there, you connect the HDMI cable, and off to the races you go. You're able to play your games on your clear 1080p or 4K television. They did talk about the fact that you can connect wireless control. You can use the, you know, some of the 8-bit Duo controllers, you know, like the ones they did for the Super Nintendo and the Sega, which is kind of cool. Or even your own wireless controllers and everything. So like I said before that interruption, basically they said that that the MIDI files allow you to create your own soundtracks, you know, for games, or even allow you to basically create your own soundtracks and stuff, maybe to go along with the games you create through the Game Boy Studio, which is kind of cool in my opinion. It's kind of a neat feature. Now, like I said, as I was mentioning before I get interrupted, the dock basically, as I was saying, allows you to play your games on the television just like the Switch allows you to charge it at the same time, and allows you to play the games with different controllers. One of the things they promoted was it could utilize the 8-bit Duo controllers, which is kind of cool. Excuse me there. The other thing they said is you can also use wired controllers. Now, one thing that Metal Jesus brought up was, excuse me, and Rerez, didn't bring this up, but MJR did, that it seems, that if you're going to experience any kind of latency, any lag, if you will, is when you use the wireless controllers, with the system, especially on a big screen television, because of all the input it's getting at the same time. Like, it's getting input from the game, the image, and the dock, and all that. So, MJR, Metal Jesus Rocks, basically recommends, in my opinion, from what it sounds like, to use a wired controller more than anything. For me, I have a wired controller in the form of the Retrobit Sega Genesis controller that I got. So I can that I got for my Retrobit system, along with the Retrobit version of the Super Nintendo. So I can utilize those controllers hopefully on this system if I decide to get one in the near future. And from what it looks like, it's definitely going to be something I want to look into. Definitely be something I want to look into. So yeah, they talked about that and everything, and they talked about that, and he said that again, that was the only negative that he saw was that was the, like I said, that was the only negative he saw basically. With the system, was the lag, the latency that you would get with using wireless controllers. Now, the other selling point that they talked about was the fact that this system allows you to play multitude of games. Now, we know that Nintendo, through various systems that they've done portable-wise, has allowed you to do that as well. Like with the Game Boy, with the Game Boy Advance, of course, and the Game Boy Advance SP, and even the Game Boy Color, basically. Yeah, I just dropped some things there. But basically, they allow you to take games like these are. Some of these are Game Boy games, Game Boy Color. I think I have one more Game Boy game. Hold on, I thought I did. No, I don't. Mostly it's all Advance. But anyway, when the Game Boy Advance came out and the Game Boy Advance SP came out, they allowed you to, I think the SP allowed you to do this too, it allows you the compatibility of doing that. You could put your Game Boy Color or your Game Boy games in there, raise up the system like that, like change the image and the size of the image and play it like that. Now, although the backwards compatibility for the GBA games stopped with the SP and the Advanced SP and the Advance, even though the GBA and GBS backwards compatibility stopped there, mainly, as I put these things back here, it didn't stop entirely. It didn't stop, entirely with Nintendo, because Nintendo also, besides this being just for these games, when they brought out the Nintendo DS, every different version from the original to the Lite to the DSi, not only allowed you to play games like this, the DS games, but they gave you the extra slot, to play your Game Boy games. So when you turned it on, you could have two options. If it didn't freeze on me there. That was weird. Hold on, guys. Like I said, you could have two options, just like you see there. You have your DS game and you have your Game Boy game. And you can play these on the bottom or top screen. So it gave you that backwards compatibility up to a limit, mainly for this. That going for the Game Boy Advance games. But then when we got into the what's the word I'm looking for? Brain's going blank here, guys. I do apologize. But when we got into the 3DS and 2DS era of the portable systems, not only were you able to play your 3DS games, which are right here, basically about the same size, well, a little bit bigger. Yeah, they're a little bit bigger, but not only were you able to, it's easy for me to say, play your 3DS games like that on your 3DS or your 2DS, but as I put this back in there, and that was my Sonic Boom game given to me by Frank Hill. It's Frank. But you were also able to play your DS games. You're also able to play your DS games in there as well. So you could basically take one system on the go when you would play when you wanted to play games, or you could take both systems and you could share one with a sibling, a friend, or whoever, so they could play something while you're playing the other system. Now, as far as like what it's able to do via dock, like I said, it's very similar, according to what Metal Jesus and Rerez talked about. Very similar, if you will, to the Nintendo Switch, but it's not the first time that the system had, the Nintendo had done that. We know about the Super Game Boy, which allowed you to do it with the Game Boy, regular Game Boy games and the Game Boy Color games, but then basically when the GameCube came out, they also allowed you to play all the Game Boy game versions or variants out there, on your system here. You were able to play them on here. And the way you did it is you bought this, which was a Game Boy Advance, a Game Boy player, and you connected it to the bottom of your GameCube, where you connected mainly, like if you were trying to do, let's say, online stuff and everything, you connected it on the back there, or on the bottom here. You connected it there. And then what you would do, and I have it somewhere, it's probably one of my cartridges, you put the Game Boy Player CD that came with it, you put the CD in there, you shut it down once, not many times like I did. Then what you do is you take your Game Boy, if I can get the games here, you can take your Game Boy games, no matter which ones they are, like this is the Batman one, and you could put it in there, and there you go. You could play your Game Boy game on there, or your Game Boy Color games, on there, just as well. You could do that, which is kind of cool. But that's not the only games you can play. That's not the only games you can play, because you could also, play, easy for me to say, play your Game Boy Advance games in there as well. Just like that. And you're good to go. Now it also gave you an eject thing right here. It gave you an eject thing so you could just easily bring them out and everything. So, it wouldn't be the first time for anybody to play Game Boy games on their system. On their television. It wouldn't be the first time. It wouldn't be the first time you'd be able to do that. And I don't think it's the first time either with the Game Gear games at all as well. I think there was something for them as well that that allowed you to play them on your television via the Sega Genesis, or one of the variations of the Genesis at that time. Now, what's interesting, speaking of the Genesis, even though one of the main selling points of the Analog Pocket is the fact that you can play all the Game Boy variations throughout the years. All the Game Boy games, variant of Game Boy games, I should say, throughout the years. You can also, like I say, do Game Gear. And again, you could play that on your television, but like I said, it wouldn't be the first time I think that would happen. I think it's happened before. I think Sega allowed that to happen before. Was an adapter of their own. It's just an adapter I think that didn't sell very well, which is why I don't think anybody really knew about it. But I know one was out there. I think we can all agree at that. But the other selling point is you could play other portable games on here. Because one thing that Metal Jesus and Rerez pointed out when they got their systems in for review from Analogue was both the systems came with the Game Gear adapter. And what the Game Gear adapter does is basically it goes into the back of the Analogue like a regular cartridge, just like, let's say, Super Game Boy into the Super Nintendo, and then that allows you to take your Game Gear games and put them into the back of the system there. Now, as I mentioned before, I think I mentioned before the phone rang, or I mentioned in my first attempt at doing this video, basically, I think the one thing that will throw a lot of fans off is the fact that the button configuration is not of that of a Game Gear. See, the Game Gear is kind of like a Sega game controller, Sega Genesis controller, the 3-button one. It only has 2 buttons though. It only has 2 buttons, which is A and B, which is fine. But I think that would throw people off a little bit, not much, but a little bit, especially if they're playing like Sonic the Hedgehog. They're playing maybe a portable version of Altered Beast, stuff like that. So I think that might throw them off a little bit, but not much, because the Game Gear only had like I think 2-3 buttons, and this one has 4 buttons. It has A, B, X, and Y. So so I think that might throw some people off, but not really. But yeah, honestly, I think. Honestly, I think that's probably one thing that might be a downer. And I didn't hear Metal Jesus or Rerez talk about it, but again, that might be a downer for some people. Maybe not. Maybe they look at this and be like, okay, A and B is the same for my Sonic game, so that means either Y or X is my C. So that's the only thing I can think of. But yeah, if there's anything that might be a con, in my opinion, it's the button layout. When it comes to Game Gear games. But yeah, the adapters that came with them, that came in with their send-in review copies, like I said, are similar to what you do with a Super Game Boy on the Super Nintendo. You insert it, you put the game in, boom, you're on your way. You're on your way in playing your Game Gear games on the Analog Pocket, using basically Nintendo DS-like buttons, if you will. Although, like I said, it shouldn't be too confusing, but it might be something that needs to be worked on, hopefully in future firmware updates down the line. Other portable systems that they plan to bring adapters out for, if not already, are the Atari Lynx, the Neo Geo Pocket. I'm sure the Turbo Express, because the Turbo Express, if you remember, was actually just a portable TurboGrafx 16, and the fact that the games are basically card-based games. I think doing a adapter for them on the Analog Pocket would be definitely worth the purchase, in my opinion, down the line. It would help make it better down the line, because not only would you be able to play all initial Game Boy game variants, formats throughout the years, throughout its history, and along with Game Gear and the Lynx and Neo Geo Pocket, but you'd also be able to play, TurboGrafx on there as well. The other thing, but, to me, I think if there's one adapter they should bring out, honestly, if there's one adapter they should bring out, honestly, if there's one adapter they should bring out, it's for this, for the DS and the 3DS. I think if you bring out an adapter for the DS and the 3DS, even if it's the same adapter, to me, that would put this over the top. because not only would you be selling the system on the fact that, hey, you know, not only can you play Game Boy, Game Boy Advance, and Game Boy Color but you can also, along with those, play Game Gear, Atari Lynx, Neo Geos, and possibly TurboGrafx 16s. But in addition to all that, you could also play these. You can also play these. And I think if you do that, I think basically if they do that, that would be a selling point that, to me, you know, would make the system worth getting. And my system just froze again. But to me, that would make this a system worth getting, if you will. It would definitely make it a system worth getting down the line. And I don't know why my system's messing up now. Hope I didn't damage the thing or anything. I don't think I did. But anyway, I think if you add a DS and 3DS adapter to it, it'll make it worth it in the long run. I really do. I think it'll definitely make it worth it in the long... Okay, it didn't mess it up. Just making sure. I don't know why it does that lately. But like I said, if you do that, if Analogue does that, if they add a cartridge adapter for DS and 3DS, it'll be worth it. I really do. It'll really sell it. It'll really put it over the top, guys. It really would. Heck, you can even try to do... Heck, you can even probably do an adapter for the Switch. And maybe the PSP. PSP might be a long shot, but the Switch one? That might be possible. But we'd have to see. We'd have to see. I don't think the Switch one would be viable right now, because that'd be patent. That'd be kind of crossing over the patent that Nintendo has. But to me, along with the selling point of being able to play all the other Game Boy formats on this one system, along with Game Gear, Lynx, Neo Geo Pocket, and possibly TurboGrafx, I think one of the over-the-top selling points for an adapter they should look into would be Nintendo DS and Nintendo 3DS. Because they do that, then that puts it over the top. But overall, I do have to agree with Metal Jesus and Rerez on it. I think it is a system worth getting. I'm going to look into it in the near future when I get some money, get ahead of myself. But what do you guys think? What did you think about the about the Analogue Pocket, and how do you feel about it? Are you considering getting one in the future? What do you think? Adapters could be utilized for it in the future? You know, as far as portableness goes, do you think they should look into the addition of doing a TurboGrafx one, and as well as the Nintendo DS and 3DS one? What are your thoughts? And do you think it's possible for a PSP one to be done? How do you feel about it? Let me know down below. Or PS Vita, PSP or PS Vita. You know, do you think those are possible? What do you think? I think it's possible, but maybe a Vita. I'm not, really sure about a PSP, but you get the idea. But what are your thoughts? Comment down below, live chat during the premiere, like the video. Check me out at my Teespring store, like I mentioned earlier. Also, check me out at BW Rose's Discussion on all your favorite audio podcast locations, except for Pandora. As I mentioned at the beginning, close to 300 podcasts. Check that out when it happens. Also, check me out at BW Roses on VENMO. Also, check me out at patreon.com/BW Roses at the $1, $3 tier. And check me out at Venmo at Brian-Walmer-2 to help support me there if you feel like it. But again, let me know what your thoughts on this Analogue Pocket. How do you feel about it? The videos at the end here, you've probably seen them by now. To Metal Jesus and Rerez views on it, or discussions on it, will be provided. And until next time, guys, I will talk to y'all later.